Hey, good morning.
Hey.
Would you join me in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I didn't hear her say it.
I didn't hear her say it either. Was she standing up?
Now, I don't know, can we count her here or not?
Yeah, I'm going to give the roll and we'll hear her say present.
Okay, I didn't know whether that was, we passed the appropriate stuff.
If you want to announce it
Yeah.
ahead of time that...
Can you still hear us, Lisa?
She's in the bathroom.
Yes, I can still hear you.
Okay.
Go ahead, please.
Okay. Luddington.
Here.
Patrick. Bruner.
Here.
Ellis by phone.
Here.
Farnham.
Here.
Lawton.
Here.
Voigt.
Here.
Big brother.
Okay, we're having a special meeting for one sole purpose this morning, and that is to accept the ambulance bid from Jeremy Neal, subject to the closing tomorrow and him gaining the ownership of land, building, equipment, and vehicles. So that was tabled, so discussion?
Don't see any reason.
I just want to let you know that I talked to Lisa about it last Thursday, Tuesday, whatever it was, Lisa, right?
Right.
And you had a couple of questions.
Yes.
I know that's more on the contract, but it's still germane to this, okay?
Yes, I'll let you go ahead and share those.
Okay, that's fine. The first was, your bid is $250. Okay, so that means that we put 20 cents, that's the rate. So let's say that generates 253,000. But when we actually collect, we may only collect 249. So I talked to Mark about that because that was a question I had and Lisa brought to me. In other words, we can't pay it out of general fund. We can't pay it out of any other funds because that would mean that other townships and other folks in the county would be paying for it. So he was going to talk to your attorney and see how you were going to handle that.
I think they were putting not to exceed.
Okay, that's fine. And I just wanted to pass that along, and I'm sure when Mark comes in, he'll have that with him. But that was an important question. And I talked to Don about that, and say 1 year, if we collect 251, okay? And then the following year we collect 250, and then the following year we collect 249. Well, we can take that 1,000 and keep it as close as we can, all right? I mean, in good faith. Did you hear that okay, Lisa?
Yes.
All right. The other question she had was about the insurance, the liability insurance. I think it's $2 million.
We'll have 3.
You'll have 3. I think we asked for 2, but they're going to have 3. Her question was, what happens if they have a problem with somebody and they sue them, and they sue them for whatever, and they get $4 million. Then that's not on the county, but that would be on you to figure out how that would happen. We went with pattern and practice in Illinois, and $2 million is standard. Do you have anything more to ask that, Lisa?
No.
All right. So I just wanted to make you aware of those 2 things. And I think the contract, other than that, is Mark's, I think, fine with it. I know you are. You got a copy of it, but there'd be one change made. And of course, he would exceed the contract in the insurance. Okay? So I'd entertain a motion to accept the bid, subject to him acquiring the property, building, equipment and vehicles.
I'll make it.
Okay, Phil moves. And Russ seconds. Or is there any further discussion? Okay, would you call the roll?
Luddington,
Yes.
Bruner,
Yes.
Ellis,
Yes.
Farnham,
Yes.
Lawton.
Yes.
Okay. It does carry. And that is the full purpose of that meeting. So a motion to adjourn. Russ moves.
Oh, sorry.
Phil seconds. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. All right, we are adjourned. So, just in time, we need to get going because we've got, whenever you're ready. Okay, we've already said the pledge, so we'll start the study session. Adam, why don't you lead off, buddy?
Figured I'll save your eyesight so I can't forget me today.
Well,
Alright guys, you'll get the stats in front of you. Pretty busy month this month again, 181 for the 911s. Average 911s are 6. I added a line to this one. Average calls a day total, so including our 911s and our transfers, are up to 8.1. So that's pretty steady. Our dispatch en route, still under the 2 minutes at 1.13, a little higher than last month. We had a couple outliers on there that were upwards of 2 minutes, still under that 2 minute mark, but that did get brought up at our staff meeting, and I told them I prefer under a minute, but per contract we're 2, but for the vast majority we're still under that 1 minute mark. There's just a couple outliers pushing that number up a little bit. You guys can see the rest of the numbers there. Our community health visits, our mobile integrated health, we're sitting at 19 this month. That program is expanding. One of my medics is getting ready to graduate as nurse practitioner. Once he does that, that program line will probably break off onto him. EMS will have limited involvement at that point. That'll be its own service line. PR events are picking up. We got fair next week, so we will have a truck dedicated 4 of the 7 or 8 nights just for the fair. I'm putting on an extra truck for those events, so we're not neglecting our other obligations. The second page is all our destinations. You can see the patient still has the choice, but the vast majority are electing to go to Paris on their own accord. We don't force them to go anywhere unless we have multiple trucks out. Then we say we'll provide transport to your preferred destination when we have trucks available. As far as updates on my end, our new truck is still slated to come this time next month. We were going to get it around the 1st of August. We're having trouble sourcing the power load system. It's on back order. They can't give me an exact date, but that is the only piece of that we are currently waiting on. Unfortunately, in the medical world, there's lots of stuff on back order. It hasn't super affected us yet. We still have all the equipment we need, but I've got more mechanical CPR devices on order. Those have been back ordered, so trying to play the sourcing game. That's pretty much it for EMS, unless you guys have questions for me. Get in.
There's times you have like 2 ambulances, one behind the other. Is that, they go the same, is that the same run, same person? Or
Yeah, so my policy is if the call sounds serious, that minimum of 2 crews will respond, just so you have extra hands. And if I'm around, which is honestly the majority of the time, I'll respond as well on the command vehicle.
Okay. That's one.
I'd rather send everybody out and realize we don't need it than not have enough hands when I do.
Understand.
But that patient only gets billed for the one ambulance,
Okay,
of course.
good.
except you.
It's all right, I can afford it.
Any other questions?
Questions, gentlemen? Lisa?
No, I have no questions.
Thank you, Ed.
Thank you.
Did you have anything you wanted to say, Jeremy?
Nope.
When, if the contract is signed on Wednesday, everything, when do you officially start your service?
Officially, tomorrow after I get all the assets at closing.
Okay. Any questions? Did you want to identify yourself as a public, we have public comment, and I know you talked to Augie, and we talked briefly just now, and you wanted to make a 5-minute presentation or less to the board.
I don't think it'll take 5 minutes, but
All right.
to the board, I just want to introduce myself. I'm Kevin Meyer. I'm from Monroe City. Has anybody ever heard of that?
I have
That's
You're kidding me.
in Indiana,
Yeah.
go through there all the way to Pike Central, I was out for 12 years.
I live.
know
I live on a farm.
you know where Lagodi is?
Oh my gosh, yeah. We can't very
We're
on
not
top of
very,
Bog's
we're
Lake.
really not very proud
You're
of
kidding
it.
me. What's your last name?
Bruner.
Burner. Okay.
Played for Jack Butcher.
Yep, I know Jack, and I know his son. His son goes to South Knox. I'm from South Knox High School.
Bill Butcher.
No.
Was it Bill or
Do what?
Bill?
Bill, yeah. And
South Knox, nice school.
South Knox Spartans,
I
yeah.
go by there when I step through the country,
Yep,
through that little, whatever that is.
Yeah,
Yep.
but I live on a farm. I'm down by the White River. I don't know if you ever heard of the White River. Okay. I'm a mile and a half from the White River, about 9 miles from the Wabash, so I'm down toward the point in southern Knox. I work for RQAW, and I'm in business development, which is sales. I just tell you right now, I'm also a licensed auctioneer, so if you think I talk quick, well, I do, but I've been an auctioneer for about 25 years too. And, RQAW is a company it's in Indiana. It's based out of Indianapolis. We have an office in Vincennes for me, and I've got probably 2 or 3 architects and several engineers that work out of that office. We specialize in jails, and I've been kind of I watch Channel 10 News too. I just tell you point blank, that's what we get. I'm also a member of the Zora Shrine in Terre Haute, so I spend a lot of time in Terre Haute. And but we do specialize in jails. We're probably the #1 in the state of Indiana, and we have done work in the state of Illinois as well. So it's not new to us. But I just kind of followed Channel 10 News, and I kind of felt like, I know this is early in the phase, and but I knew you guys was a farming community. I knew I'd fit right in, and that's what I specialize in. So in southern Indiana, well, I'll just tell you, the best reference of all is we're doing the Vermilion County Jail right across the state line. So I work with Mike Phelps, he's the sheriff over there, and I've met your sheriff several times in the past. I've not been making sales calls on him lately, but I did come up last week when I met Augie, and I stopped at his office and met with him. And they both said, you know, I should come to your study session and get in front of you. I know I got 5 minutes and I don't need all that. But I wanted to bring these booklets because, again, I know I'm early, but at least this kind of familiarizes yourselves with what we've done. And we do boatloads of projects like what you guys are getting ready to go through. Personally, me, I've done this for 10 years. I sold Posey County, which is way down in Illinois, right next to Kentucky. That job is complete. We did Greene County, which Greene County is on the other side of Sullivan. And we did my jail. I'll just tell you, my history is I'm also a past county commissioner and a past county councilman, so I know politics just like you do. So, but just keep me in mind. I did put my business card in there, and feel free to call me if any questions and stuff. Again, I'm not the professional. I'm not an architect or an engineer. I mean, I'm just the messenger. But I have done it enough times to where, you know, I could be a big help to you. But I'd really like down the road for our director to come and maybe speak in front of you guys. And, you know, he can really, I mean, he's the pro. I mean, that's all he's done. We have 3 or 4 guys that's been with the company for 40 years. And we are the specialists. You know, so really that's it. I mean,
You need to get a hold of Coles County,
Coles,
County Regional Planning Office.
okay.
They're doing an RFQ here soon.
Okay, Coles, C-O-L.
COL.
Over Charleston.
Okay,
It's the
okay.
next county just west
Alright.
of us.
Well, and I'll just tell you, I mean, I'm familiar with this county just because we're all on the same Channel 10 News.
Right.
You know, so I do follow Paris
Right.
because it catches it. That's the only news that I watch.
Mm-hmm.
They're doing the study for us,
Okay.
and they're gonna be hiring an architect
Mm-hmm.
soon,
Okay. Okay.
by late summer.
Okay.
So
I'll make a sales call on them too.
I will take you and introduce you, and he can get you the information.
That'd
So
be
that
perfect.
you can talk to them,
Sure.
and
Sure.
we don't want to do their job for them, but
Right. Right.
I think
Well,
that would be appropriate.
what's like on Channel 10 News, I noticed where you guys have done your study. Is that
We've
correct?
done one study,
One study, okay.
just on population, the old jail,
Right.
some things like that.
Yeah.
It's just very preliminary.
Sure.
We were at phase 0.
Okay.
So now we're moving out of phase 0 into the other
Good
phases.
deal. Good
Okay?
deal. And I will say, it's been several years ago, but I did tour your old jail. Have you all went through that?
Well, it's a lot different than it was.
Well, and that's what your sheriff told me the other day, but I was there when they still had that pie door.
Yeah.
Right.
And I tell you what,
Yeah.
unbelievable, unbelievable.
We should
Get
have
my
sold
son
that.
out there
Oh, you
one
should
time,
have.
play with it.
If you still got it, you ought to advertise it. I bet you money somebody would love to have that in a museum
It
or
was
probably
set
buy
right by the garage.
Yeah.
it. Is that right?
Yeah.
You know, so really that's my spiel. Now, I'm gonna kind of hang around. If you don't care, you can give me that information. And
Well, I was
if you all have any questions for me, just
Well,
You know.
since he's down in our area, Lud and I, we probably vote for him. No, just kidding.
I don't know.
Well,
Just
I'm,
kidding.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at you.
In Grove City,
pretty rough crowd over there.
Oh, the Goldies.
Blue Jean
Yeah,
Factory there,
Well, that's the Blue Jean Center.
center, yeah.
And what that
That's
was-
for old people.
Well, back in 1870, Blue Jean Williams, which he owned thousands of acres, but he was our governor. He's the last pioneer governor the state of Indiana had. And matter of fact, his great-great-grandson's still around, and all the relations. So we know everything
You
about
can
it.
come right back in if you follow me for just a
Yeah,
second.
nice.
Grove City.
I looked through there in Bloomfield, Jasper, all those Washington, all those
I
towns.
spent 12 years there, all those places.
Yeah.
There's some nice looking jails in there.
Oh, yeah, nice
And then you're
looking.
moving back in. All right, perfect. All right. Lisa,
Yes.
do you have any information? I know you and I have talked, but on the Edgar County Summer Meals Program, is there any more that you have to report?
No, Amanda hasn't emailed me back.
Okay, I'll fill them in. She did go to, Amanda went to school districts and she's gotten funding. Please correct me if I'm wrong here, but she's got funding from several sources. They still may be, but Lisa doesn't know, about $5,000 short. So we can deal with that later once Lisa gets a report. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Today, we can talk about the agenda afterwards, or do you want to go over it real briefly? Mark is here to talk to us about backlog. We have found and checked the $1.6 million that we got can be used to expedite, and he will explain the pitfalls of that. It's not simply throwing money at this deal, but we can do certain things with that money that would help our court and prosecutors and even our public defenders. But I thought it'd be good, and I talked to you that I was gonna visit with him. So Mark, please.
Morning.
Good morning.
Phil will be impressed by this, but I think my notes are on my computer here, so I can kind of modern with
I
this.
already know you. I'm not impressed. I can't work with those. Go ahead.
I was stuck playing that train, I thought you may be driving it, so I was looking at that locomotive. All right. So, I had been talking to Jeff on something else, and it came up that somehow the backlog came up to your attention, or there was some discussion about whatever people complain about with the criminal justice system. But certainly backlog with COVID, and it's been a concern now in almost every county, every state. And I thought to properly understand what the last couple of years has done is to kind of give you an overview of what the state, and I don't do this because I do not want it to seem like it's complaining, because every department needs more money. We all do more with less. But very few people actually understand how the criminal system works. They watch TV, everything's solved in an hour, and they just wonder why isn't everything done, and why are these people in prison, and why are they in my pole barn stealing my four-wheeler, or why are they in my garage, why are they in the alleys, why do they wear backpacks, why aren't they in jail? And to give kind of just this overview of how it works and what we do and where we're at is to give you some understanding of why there may be, or there is a backlog, not why there maybe there is, and then how it's been exacerbated by jail and COVID, is to then address, well, if there is money available and if there is a concern that fits in the priorities that the board sets, some solutions appear to be on a temporary basis only with money. But let me just give you kind of a general overview. That's why I'm here. Essentially, we are at this budget year within $5,000 of where we were when I took over 11 years ago. Like 2012 or so, I think it was, we all had to cut, every department had to cut back. And so now we're just kind of working up to where, within $5,000 of where we were back in 2010, 2011. I'm a full-time attorney. I have an assistant state's attorney who is a part-time attorney. I have one full-time administrative assistant and a part-time administrative assistant. There used to be a second full-time administrative assistant. But when that one left to become a dispatcher, because of the cuts, I only hired a 3-day-a-week or part-time to try and fit into the budget. The numbers in general, again, the only way to make them make sense to you, maybe to follow just one felony case through.
Just, Mark, interrupt. Your part-time assistant prosecutor, is that still split between us and Clark?
Yes.
Okay. And how many days a week is he here?
20 hours, multiple days, but split between
Like 3 different days?
yeah, he's here one full day on Thursdays.
Okay.
And it's half days. Not, I'm going to go through the schedule as well to let you know when
And that's
we
how
have
it's been for several years? Well, no.
Certainly for, at one point, actually 2 points. Alan Bell, way back when.
He was full-time, wasn't he?
No, he consolidated. He was a part-time private attorney
Right.
and part-time Edgar County Assistant State's Attorney. And then he, in the late 90s, consolidated to drop private practice. I'll be the Edgar County and the Clark County assistants.
So
and
he was down there or something? Okay.
Yeah, he was part-time, and then we kind of,
Okay.
both counties kind of decided to contribute in each of that, to make it a full-time position, but half-time was spent in each county. Then it was in 2012, the Clark County State's Attorney, for all stated political reasons, decided, hey, I'm out, I need to hire this other one here for his reasons. We then had to go out, try and find just a part-time 20-hour attorney. We did. It didn't work out in Clark County, so this part-time attorney, then we went back together again as a full-time. He's now the state's attorney down in Clark County, Kyle Hudson.
Right.
And then we hired, very fortunate to hire Tim Gilbert, who, when Kyle left, and Tim Gilbert is the current assistant state's attorney in both counties. But just so I have the numbers, I'm going to give you the general numbers of what we handle, and then I'm going to just talk with what I deal with, which is essentially felonies and then outside stuff. But just general numbers, we file on average about 1,500 cases a year. So that's between felonies, misdemeanors, traffic cases, DUIs, and juvenile delinquency petitions. Of those, it's about 231 felonies a year. It does not include what are called JA cases, neglect or abuse cases, where DCFS comes in, removes kids, and then asks us to file a petition to remove them. Those are handled with the juvenile delinquent cases, but we're already at 20. Our highest ever has been 27 a year in the last 10 years, and we're at 20 so far this year, probably as a result of the financial issues. And so to break that down, so when I'm going to talk to you about felonies, but remember, I deal with felonies. The assistant deals with misdemeanors, traffics, DTs, and JDs. So of the 1,500 cases on average, I'm dealing with, on average, 230, 240 felony cases a year. He deals with, again, the other items, because they're what you do in each case is a little bit less than what you do in a felony. All this said, there is a American Bar Association standard for what attorneys should handle. It's done for public defenders because that's the most difficult thing to get funding for. And for felonies, not including capital cases, which of course it hasn't had for 20 years, is 150 files a year, 150 felony files a year. That's the tipping point between what we call ineffective assistance of counsel, where maybe there's not enough time the attorney spends with these people. So I'm going to try and put that number into into context. So I'm handling 230 to 240 a year. And I'm just guessing this, because we also don't have time to take statistics. It's also part, I can't have somebody go research this stuff. We kind of get it from probation, the circuit clerk's office, and our own records. We don't have time. He has to be involved in at least 75, 80% of cases, the public defender. So that knocks it down to about 180 or so, where he's, again, it's just an estimate, 175, 180, where he and I have felonies together. Part-time. He's also got Clark County cases. So he's at the standard or above, basically just on our county, and then he add Clark County to the next. He also does the misdemeanors, the DTs, the traffics that are misdemeanor level traffic cases.
You're talking about the public defender.
Public defender,
Right.
the juvenile delinquency cases, which we also have to pull in other attorneys, sometimes pay private attorneys to get involved because we have last time we did have 5 kids. So everybody has their own mother, father, and kids. So he's on the other side of those as well, and the abuse neglect cases. 20 we filed this year, average about 20 a year. So his caseload is phenomenally packed. And again, I'm going to go through what I do, just run one case through so you have an idea, and then he has no time, very little time. And I'm going to qualify everything because I also recognize Gary's here. I can't speak for him. I'm observing as the other side opponent. I've been a private attorney for 19 years, done this for 11 years. I watch what he does, I know what he goes through. I run an office, I ran an office private practice. With my partner, so I see what he can't do. He can't possibly do it, and he's also trying to run a private practice in addition to the 2 part-time gigs. So,
Question: How is it? Is he supposed to put so many hours in, like 20 hours?
yeah, he's in court in each of the systems.
So he's okay.
He's working, burning the midnight oil, they say. So, and again, I'll give you a schedule anytime.
And that's 20 hours in both our county and 20 hours down there, roughly.
Yeah. And
Okay.
and I'm again speaking for what I see, and we're on the opposite side of. So I don't know what he tries to do on a private level, but and I don't mean to put any words in his mouth. It's my opinion as I look and watch this, because people make all kinds of accusations and complaints about the system. And I'll get into some of those shortfalls, but the one thing that can be done that would address backlog and speed of how cases get through the system is to have a full-time public defender. It's an ugly topic because nobody really cares about criminals getting representation unless it's their kid or relative or friend or neighbor. And then I always hear the other side of, man, this needs to be improved. A defendant constitutionally is entitled to competent representation. Not the best lawyer in town, but competent representation. That goes anywhere from being able to call, talk, visit, investigate, theorize on defenses, talk about plea bargains, what am I looking at, what should I do, what's my best chance, all these things for each case. And obviously as they move up from misdemeanor cases to felony cases to murder cases, it gets more and more serious. He's dealing with hundreds of cases. And that is to say, as is my assistant. So to give you an idea, the system is designed to be backlogged. There's no possible way to do it competently, forget doing an extraordinary job, because we have one trial a month. Trial setting is the 3rd Tuesday of every month. On average, if I look, again, go back to numbers, and again, these are approximations. I'm just going to talk about felonies, but remember, misdemeanors have trials too, as do DUIs. So I file about 20 felonies a month on average. That's 4.5 a week. So basically it's 1 a day, a felony case. as, and I'll talk about what a felony case is, but if you think about it from a standpoint of, if an individual is not arrested by law enforcement and put in the jail, they send me a report and request a warrant or request a notice, or leave it up to me to do whatever I decide. So if it's not initiated by an arrest and they're sitting in our jail, I get reports. So say I come in on a Monday morning, I look and see what happened on the weekend. We get the reports, I develop charges, we do the paperwork, we have to set bond on people. That's a separate court hearing. Everybody's entitled to bond within 48 hours, get in front of the judge, get an amount for bond. And remember bond, because the rules have completely changed, and we're going to talk about that. So once I review the reports, ask the law enforcement officer for follow-up, this witness, because remember, they need probable cause to arrest, which means probably happened. In felonies, we have what are called preliminary hearings, which are a little bit more than it takes to arrest, but certainly it's the probability that 51% that a crime occurred and the defendant you've charged is involved. So you have to have a hearing for probable cause hearing, preliminary hearing. But in the end, I have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt, 98, 99% certainty. So the proofs change, and how you get evidence in the trial changes. So there's a fight at the shooters, witnesses will or won't cooperate. Law enforcement officer kind of gets an idea of what happened, sizes things up, sees damages, talks to the victim. He can make an arrest. Obviously, it looks like something happened here. Witnesses corroborate if they've interviewed the witnesses that the victim says he was hit, or so they arrest the defendant. Then it comes to me. We see it happened on a sidewalk, public property. It's a felony, aggravated battery. That goes to a preliminary hearing. I then have to have the officer come up, tells me easy to get by a preliminary hearing. But now I then have to sit down, review the discovery, provide it to the defense attorney, the public defender in most cases. We then I make an offer. That starts the plea bargain process. You've probably heard about plea bargains. The system cannot run without plea bargains. It's simply anywhere, any place, anytime. If there aren't plea bargains, the whole system breaks down and clogs off. Go back to the one trial a month. On average, 230 or 40 felonies a year. We simply can't get to them. So if people don't accept pleas, which means I have to produce evidence they're pretty sure I can produce, so they know they're cooked at one level, either the most serious charge or lesser charge, but they have to come to that conclusion themselves with the help of their attorney. The plea bargain, generally, if you admit one thing, I may dismiss another thing, because you simply have to deal. That's the plea bargain process. 95% of cases resolve on a plea bargain basis. And I'm going to get to dispositions and the numbers for that. Well, so we go to the discovery, the plea bargaining offer goes out, defendant gets it, may or may not talk to his attorney, public defender. They may or not have their track phone charged up. They may or may not be in the same residence they were 3 months before when they got arrested. They may or may not care until they have to be in court again. Generally, my observation is in court is the most time they talk with their attorney. And this is a time where we may have 30, 40, 50 other cases on certain Fridays, or just he's busy with our Monday and Thursday calls. Essentially, if you're smart, common sense tells you keep your head down, be quiet, state's attorney won't notice you. There's 30 other people here, they aren't going to get to me for a while. So why would anybody admit and fess up and be held accountable if they don't have to? Right? It's like displaying your kid. If no one does anything, they're going to wait, keep quiet until they're on the hot seat. So they sit in the room, they wait, we try and move the case along. They may come a couple of times to see if anything's changed, if any motions have been filed, suppression, cops shouldn't have arrested me, they didn't have probable cause to search my car, shouldn't have come in my house, whatever the reasons are, they might have motions. Fitness hearings for defendants with mental health issues. These are kind of motions that go on between getting the plea and discovery after a preliminary hearing, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 months in the downstairs courtroom. It then gets moved up to the trial courtroom, which is the second floor courtroom. You now come in the third Friday of the month with public defender cases, the fourth Friday of the month with private attorney cases, and we start getting cases ready for trial. Sounds simple so far. So let's figure out, well, how do we get cases to trial? That's where it becomes more labor intensive for me, for my staff, for the court, for the public defender, for the law enforcement officers involved. So let's say, for example, this month we had 10 cases ready for trial, called ready for trial to prepare for trial. We know we can't try 10 cases, we can try one. But I get 5 ready, assistant gets 5 ready. Actually, I got more ready this month because I thought there was some we could pick off because they had to plead guilty once they just had to come. They're good offers, they're minimal crimes. But I can't force them. The defendants have the time frame on their side of how fast they want to go to trial, called the speedy trial. Or if they just keep quiet and stay out of the way, they don't have to have any penalty. We have to deal with those in custody first, because we have to try them within 4 months, 120 days, we have to let them out. That's called a speedy trial demand. So we're in on a third or fourth Friday of the morning. We've gotten called ready for trial in 10 cases for the next month. We then try and whittle those cases down by plea bargaining, by trials, to find out what witnesses are available, to see what cops are available when they're on vacation, in drug cases to see if we can get an ISP lab tech who has to identify the drug and the amount, need expert advice, to see if my victims are available. Cases fall either way. Lawyers aren't available, victims, witness. But we generally, and I'm going to go back to numbers again, we generally get plea bargain. We generally resolve 2 or 3 or 4 cases because they don't know what our problems are. They just know, oh, I'm up for trial, and now they have to talk to their attorney, now they're forced to talk to their moms or whomever, get their advice, and we get these pleas. If we don't, we go to trial. If we go to trial, we go to sentencing. If we convict. There have been maybe 2 mistrials, but most are convictions. We don't have the luxury of just picking people out and going to court half-assed and not having evidence. Doesn't mean it can't happen. I'm just saying, by the time they get to trial, we generally have a good understanding that they're guilty. Now we have to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. That generally happens when we get to trial. Then we have a sentencing hearing. Probation gets involved, does a study. If we don't agree on a sentence, we go in front of the judge. The judge now listens to our arguments and he decides what the sentence is. The sentence is prison, probation in jail, conditional discharge. The judge makes the decision. So in talking about resolutions, the plea bargain process, so I'll just give numbers first. On average, so let's think about 230 cases, 240 felony cases are filed a year. Approximately 113 result in a probation sentence. That usually means local jail or confinement or home confinement, since of our issues. And probation means they're followed monthly by our local probation department. Be aware those people on probation, a good percentage get violated, which means they didn't follow the rules and we have to have a resentencing. So I have to prove they didn't follow the rules, then I have to have a resentencing. Those aren't new cases, they just stay in these open cases. So we don't file something new, these cases stay open for years because they go on probation, they don't go to the counseling, they don't come in and see probation, whatever it is, they get violated and they get resentenced.
What percentage do you think?
100 of the 230 felonies a year, 113 result in, on average for the last 10 years, 113 of them in probation sentences.
But how many of them?
I don't know. I just
half of them?
Yeah, I'd say.
Yeah.
The recidivist rate of just can't follow probation.
Right.
Maybe less, and again, I don't want to.
Right, just roughly.
That'd be probations.
Right.
We have, maybe it's the ones that violate a lot of times or frequently. Makes it seem like a lot fail. If they serve their probation successfully, there are 2 types of probation where their whole case gets dismissed. First offender probation, your first drug arrest, or second chance probation for property crimes or other crimes. If they go there 2 years, do everything they're supposed to do, probation reports to me, I go to the judge and say they've done everything you ordered, we can dismiss the case. Those are rare. So do we get, that's the rehabilitation, or people that have a chance that made one mistake or, you know, minor mistakes to rehabilitate the record, that's available. But on average, okay, we're back to 113 probation, local jail. We're some combination. I almost never give people probation without some level of confinement. Now, it doesn't mean they didn't already serve a lot of it because they couldn't get out of jail or couldn't post bond, but there's almost always a jail sentence when it comes to probation or a local sentence for felonies. About 27 cases result in a conditional discharge, which means you're not on probation, you still have to follow the rules, check in, pay fines, do counseling, whatever, but you're just not followed by probation. About 56 cases a year end up in Department of Correction sentence. DOC means outside the county to prison, more than a year. Under a year, jail. So there's a difference between jail and prison. People use the term interchangeably, but it's not. DOC is more than a year and you're out. Local jail, oh, no thanks. I'm just going to hack and wheeze and make everybody uncomfortable. So if you look at that, that's a little over 4 cases a month go to prison. So with the plea bargain, the bluff, mostly plea bargain, but getting them like they have a trial makes them focus on. 4 times a month, we're getting people either sentenced or agreeing to go to DOC. So that's 56. So total cases resolved, again, on average, is 197. That leaves, again, on average, 36 cases that are either rolled over, they're still alive, not closed, or they've been dismissed. For example, if I have Joe Blow on a burglary and a retail theft, plead to the burglary, I don't care about the misdemeanor because you're going to prison or you're going to jail. You're not going to get much of a punishment on the theft, retail theft. So if that's a way to manage the caseload as well as to entice him to accept the felony conviction, those happen all the time. They have to, or we'd never get cases finished. And so that's just what we do. It's designed to be overloaded. There's no way we can get to every case that's filed. I do not charge, I try not to charge cases where I cannot prove beyond a reasonable doubt someone's guilty. I don't think it's fair to get dragged in. There are exceptional circumstances where people have to be disrupted somehow, but generally, it's the more serious cases. So people will think, well, I had my four-wheeler stolen on my pole barn. Why isn't that guy in jail yet? And it's hard to explain to people that property crimes are down here, sexual assault cases are here, murder cases, aggravated battery against cops or corrections officers. There's a priority of how we get to those cases. So every month we're trying to line up what cases that we need to address, the most important ones. Sometimes the property crimes or the, certainly the misdemeanors, they come down at a lower level priority when we have to line up cases for trial. And certainly people that are in custody are the top priority, so we don't lose the chance to try them and get a conviction. So there's a priority to the level of number of cases. We can't get to them, the plea bargains are important. Then add in, we didn't have a jail for a while. That made charging decisions different. It made plea bargain decisions different because the ones that were in there we had to get out because we had new ones coming in. Because remember, 5 felonies a week are coming in. Or not 5 felonies, yeah, 5 felonies a week are coming in. So that it doesn't stop. That means there's misdemeanors, DUIs, juvenile cases, traffic cases, which are the most cases, obviously. There's like 900 a year on average are traffic cases. Again, these come in every day, every week, every month, so as we try and take some off the pile to resolve, they keep coming in and being put on the pile. So the ability to have a full-time assistant to address cases that are sitting there, the ability to have a full-time public defender meet with clients, decide on whether he can win cases or get better deals, whatever the defendant's analysis is, it just simply, just given the time available, it can't happen to the level it needs to if he's doing that level of work in each county. And I will say this, we are fortunate at this point to have this individual who's the public defender because he's an experienced, smart attorney who's been practicing, he's near retirement age. So it's kind of like all of you in your businesses or wherever you work, it's the most senior guys that don't panic. They've seen it before, they've dealt with it before, they know what happens in the end, they know how to manage caseloads so you don't go into crisis. If he were to leave or retire, it's very difficult, near impossible, to bring in other attorneys to be interested in the job for the workload and the pay that's currently there. Which then also goes with the assistant. If for whatever reason, assistant decides to get a better offer, go somewhere, it's very difficult to attract attorneys that want to do that kind of workload at that pay and maybe part-time. So that's why we have to partner with Clark County and try and bring, I brought Kyle to town to work for me when Clark County went south on us. He now is the state's attorney down there. I then brought Tim in with Kyle's input to work in both counties. That's the staffing issue. That's the number of cases that go through the system. And I do other things other than the felony stuff. And I had, for example, I would have responsibility as either the county's attorney for elected officials, for questions from departments, for FOIA litigation, which we just had a couple of them, a trial last month. I can think back on times where the county was sued back in the Chris Patrick era. These are successful suits. I mean, Chris Patrick was represented by his attorney, I represent the county, it was successful. The FOIA litigation, you can argue on reasonable cases. One was dropped finally by the other side. We had a trial last month where we were partially successful, they were partially successful. So there was a compromise by the judge. I'm also the kind of the general counsel or inside counsel for our insurance claims, where they hire the attorneys. Or if I have a conflict or I don't go to federal court for civil rights cases, we have to hire outside counsel. And we have any number of those cases. Some of you may remember, the rides mass transit, the ambulance from special service area number 1, where they think they're owed money, that's being defended, the civil rights cases that are filed against the jail, which there's been 3 or 4 or 5, the dental malpractice case against the county health department, Edgar County Highway had a motorcycle claim, Stidle Whitlock issue when we were sued in the late 90s, or goes back, we were sued, resued, and then it was still alive when I came in 2010, we had to settle that, deal with that. Wrongful discharge cases in the early teens, elected officials, insurance we were sued over. So I have civil lawsuit responsibilities, I have criminal felony responsibilities, obviously supervision of the assistant and the staff. And again, it's not complaining, it's trying to explain the number of cases that are going through the system where there simply has to be a there is no way to avoid a backlog. And any county that doesn't have it is doing a few things. They're just getting rid of cases or not filing them. Just plain and simple. It's either I dismiss it because I can't try it and it's gone. And that leads to its own issues. But there's just no way in the small rural counties, all the research I looked at to see what is an appropriate case law, it's all for the bigger counties where they have 40 attorneys or 100 attorneys. Cook County isn't even prosecuting, beginning 2 or 3 years ago, class 3 and 4 felony drug possessions. That's heroin, LSD, meth. They just send some medical, go to rehab. We can't deal with it in the court system. It clogs up too much, takes too much time. So let's get back to now some legislation issues that also impact us. I talked about bond. The pendulum is swinging away from incarceration to let people out. That takes many different forms. Bond has changed now, and it will change again, where there's a presumption of release, and there's going to be the presumption of no cash. Which means unless you are a threat to yourself and others that we can prove to a judge, you're arrested, paperwork's done, get a court date, we'll see you down the road. Which means they go right back to Phil's pole barn or his neighbor next door, and you're like, well, why he just stole my thing and now he's out again, what's going on? Oh, judges, state's attorney, they don't understand the rules. The rules are changing. They get, criminal defendants get $30 a day towards their fines if they're in custody. So they can be in custody for 30, 60, 90 days before they're either post bond or get a resolution or they're let out. That pretty much chews up the bond, or chews up the fines by the bond. They also get $30 a day towards the cash value of the bond. So if they sit long enough, 10 days, you get $30 towards their cash bond. 20 days, $600. 90 days, $900. And most of our bonds are relatively, we are not like big city that do the headline grabbing $1 million bonds that they then go in quietly and change the next month or two. We generally have reasonable bonds because we have a lot of indigent criminals. The court is supposed to take in a lot of considerations that nobody else thinks about. A, innocent till proven guilty, and B, they have no way of paying the money. We think about it from the standpoint, we can't have the jail overloaded. We can't have 30 to 35, I'm not sure what the number is, 32, 35 now. We could double it. And even, and sometimes it's just to disrupt the bad pattern of behavior. I may not be able to get to the case, but a serial spousal batterer sometimes just needs to sit for a week as a reminder your arguments can't lead to hands-on. That has nothing to do with the, he's just a threat to his spouse who is going to come into my office and say, I don't want to prosecute, I can't. That's a regular problem is on Friday and Saturday night, call law enforcement, there's a fight, argument, hands-on. Monday morning, please dismiss it, I'm not going to testify, do it without me, let him go. Because he's working, they're in love again, or he's the breadwinner, or family pressures, it's the parent of somebody's child. That's just a regular, every weekend habit. So, I mean, that's just the inflow that comes in through the office and how we try and get it out. But the idea of, sorry, one more thing. Parole is going to change. Difference between parole and probation. Probation you're put on as a sentence. Parole, if you go to DOC, you usually are on supervision for a year, 2 years, 3 years by the state, not local probation, when you get out and serve your DOC time. And they rarely bring people back, but let's say you commit a domestic battery, they'll pull you back in, revoke your parole, and make you serve time left on your claim, on your sentence, because you were alleged to have committed a domestic battery. That's changing now. Class 3 and 4 felonies, no more parole, 0. Class 1 and 2, 1 year. Class X, which other than murder are the major drug dealers, the major sexual assault, you're at 18 months, a year and a half. So the pendulum is swinging for the rehabilitation side, get people back into employment, get them out. We can argue politically, but our county's going to have no say because we're not on the edge of pendulum swinging for criminal justice reform. We're just going to get the dictate from the state with basically no help. And then I'll go back in, and we don't have some of the things that if you go to a larger county drug court to siphon off drug offenders from the main call. We don't have a domestic violence court. We don't have a veterans court. We don't have a mental health court. I can keep going, but you get the point. We physically can't do it because we only have one courtroom for a jury the other courtroom handles meetings and the other court hall. We don't have enough state's attorneys, judges, public defenders to staff those courts. So you can't have 2 courts going or 3 with just one full-time attorney. You simply, physically, financially, we can't do it. So the criminal justice reform driven by the larger counties or more urban areas, we have more resources, which means more courtrooms, more courts, more judges, more state attorneys, more public defenders, more money. They're dictating policy to the smaller rural counties that simply cannot do these things. We aren't the only county that doesn't have these things, believe me. Almost no county of our size or smaller I'm aware of has it. And if they do, it's a temporary issue because you have to, for a drug court, for example, we looked into it, we tried to partner with Coles County because they have a much larger probation department. Can't work it out. Just can't work it out because of what jail houses when they violate their probation when they're on drug court. The meetings you have to have separate from the court hearings we've already talked about. You have to have dates come in, review why you've screwed up, bring in the law enforcement officer or HRC that may be following you in counseling, and public defender, your lawyer, and maybe represent the state's attorney's office. A judge has to be available. That's just another room, another time, another slot for more resources to be expended. We simply cannot physically do it in our courthouse, and we don't have the personnel unless we cut out something else. And again, we aren't getting things. I think we're on top of things as much as we can be. Obviously, everything can be improved. Don't get me wrong. I can improve, our office can improve, but not by much. It's just the system is bent for backlog. So I talked about not having a jail. We had to make some adjustments. Then throw in COVID for the last year and a half. We've been closed. DOC closed. And think about that. We're not taking anybody anymore. So the system that was designed not to hold felony defendants who are convicted and sentenced by the judge to Department of Corrections, DOC just says, time out, we'll get back to you when we get to you. So now we're holding people that belong in Department of Corrections in our county jail. Case done, but they're taking up space and having to pay for it. We just were notified in the last month. We have mental fitness issues with a small percentage of our defendants. They simply aren't competent to defend themselves or interact with an attorney. We have quite a few. HHS just said, we're closed. We'll get back to you when we get to you. And we have some people that need serious treatment, and they have to be isolated in the jail, which means it takes up space that other defendants can't be in the jail, which then affects our jail because we only have limited space anyway. You can't put these people who have been determined to need mental health treatment in the general population. So, and I understand safety and the executive branch can make their decisions, judicial branch is separate, so I understand they don't really care what the judges think. It just boggles my mind that the system is designed to go through this process, to get a judge's order, and then to be moved to wherever you're appropriately supposed to be, and those places say, well, we're closed. We're not going to deal with it. So and my office is not the only one, so again, it's not a complaint. I'm just trying to explain to you what it is that we're working within. So we have, again, 4 people a month on average we're going to DOC. So for the year and a half of COVID, February of 20 to June of 21, well, currently, we still can't just send people to Department of Corrections. We have to make appointments. They'll tell us when they can get to them. That's 4 a month that we're sending that are staying locally. Which of course affects the probation people who get jail time, that now it's like, well, home confinement. Promise you're going to stay home. Don't leave your house unless you're working or in court or getting counseling. Probation, can they supervise them all? I'll let probation deal with that. But they're, again, back in the community. Some people think they should have some level of incarceration or some punitive action from what they've done as a predator or violating somebody else, and we don't have space, we can't get them in the jail. So, again, those are just some of the issues that are like the infrastructure's not built to handle. And then we get our closed jail for our reasons, and then COVID, and it just kind of mounts on each other. It kind of stacks up the system. All that being said, we get to the point of, well, is there a way, I have a gentleman who was a former Fortune 500 executive who was out in the county, house was burglarized. He's incensed that this guy isn't in jail yet. So he comes in, we make an appointment, I try and explain to him how the system works. Basically just what I've told you in a shorter version. He said, well, that's outrageous. What do we do to fix it? You know, he said, go get her, let's fix it. Well, you can go to the county board and advocate for more money. The one thing we could do that would be the most impactful is a full-time public defender. It's also the most, for our considerations, most expensive. So that's the one thing that can change. Having a full-time assistant, he would be able to address the misdemeanors and traffics and DTs, and which are DUIs and the juvenile. He'd be able to address those claims, as well as be more available. For example, the county board wants an opinion on a liquor license or something that the state's attorney simply hasn't gotten to the county board yet, because it's so far down in the level of priorities. Nope, but I'm just saying the idea of having somebody that can just look at our resolutions, and you know, the little things that come in, assessor's office, or Augie wants a question. It's like, yeah, send me an email, and that'll be in my list of things to do. So it's not just the criminal court system that would benefit from a full-time assistant. The county functioning of government would get quicker information. There would just be better handling of the county's legal affairs. If you think about the size of our budget, the 10 departments, 9-10 departments, you essentially have less than a part-time attorney taking care of your affairs, because he's got felonies and all the criminal stuff to look at, and search warrants and arrest warrants, and so it would be a better functioning county government to have an ability to access a legal opinion or some advice or whatever you may need. So there are many number of ways that a full-time assistant would help us, not just in the getting cases through the criminal justice system, which is our main goal. So full-time public defender, full-time assistant. With that, returning my administrative assistant, who was full-time in 2010, 11, and 12 until it was cut, and that was only 3 days a week from then till now, returning obviously with a full-time assistant state's attorney, a full-time administrative assistant would have to go with it. The level of paperwork, emails, telephone calls, text messages that my full-time assistant does is irreplaceable. They do more with less. I watched them saying, you know, they're here to 4 o'clock, they're here till 4:20, 4:30, 4:05. Come in early, and if they know the day's going to be a bit hectic, comes in early, goes by the police department and sheriff's department, because they sometimes forget to bring reports, so she picks up stuff. These are not people that watch the clock and they're in, they're out. So again, losing them would be very difficult, because it's experience. It's experience at the top of level. They've all been around, that's a better way to put it. They have a lot of experience, so they have a lot of issues that are not going to throw them for a loop. They're going to be able to give, my assistant will be able to give as good advice off the cuff as I'm going to give if they had to talk to an attorney, because she's seen a number of times, she knows what I'm going to say and what I'm going to ask for. So again, it's just, and I'm sure every department has that, so it's not unique to me. The senior people need to be taken care of. They help make the functioning of government work. And again, nobody likes the government until they want something done, then they wonder why the government isn't doing everything. And I get that countless times. The best argument I can come up with is a guy was reaming me one day in a death case and wanted to know why our defendant didn't get the death penalty. And I looked at him, he yelled at me for 5 minutes, and he said, well, I shouldn't say yell, lectured me for 5 minutes. And then I looked at him and said, you know we haven't had the death penalty since 2000? Well, we should have. Okay, but that limits, the game that I'm playing the rules by are changing every year, and the pendulum is swinging to more restorative justice than it is punitive or sanctioning. And a lot of people don't understand that. They just know when they're bothered or when they're inconvenienced, they want the government to come in and make it better. But then they don't want to pay taxes or lower taxes or do anything else that helps the problem. So functioning better as a state's attorney's office or as a county government, it takes finances. And we were cut back in 2012-ish. Again, we're $5,000 away from being back to that level, which is kind of hard to understand, but it's not, every department went through that. When we had to cut back, everybody got cut back 10%. So everybody's done more with less, and again, until something goes wrong, nobody notices how government functions, especially our county, but it does a pretty good job for, that's, I shouldn't say that, but, so again, so we know, here's the problem, here's how overloaded it is, here's the possibility of putting money, possibility I understand, of putting money at that problem. To do it, let's say there's a grant, let's say the grant's available for X number of years, 2 years or 3 years. The problem with grants, which is why I don't really pursue any, and I don't have the time anyway, is they only last. We tried one time to get a grant for a victim's advocate to share again with Clark County. We had the right demographics, the Attorney General's office came, so you guys should apply for this, and of course we didn't get it. But again, it's only for a year. So even if we were successful and we hire somebody to attract better people, if you want experienced people, well, they have other things going on. You can't say, well, would you like to work here for a year? And again, at the end of the year, you're probably going to be like, oh, because we won't be able to get the funding to sustain it. So that's the issue with a full-time public defender or a full-time assistant state's attorney. If we can't do it within the idea of evaluating it, see how it goes, is there an improvement, and then making it a commitment to then be moved to full-time, one or the other, it's tough to say to the attorney, hey, you're going to do this for a year, 2 years, and then I don't know what's going to happen. Because if they don't leave, then they'll be looking the whole time they're here, and then that puts us way behind the 8 ball, because if we ever lose the assistant, you know how many number of cases he's dealing with. Same thing with the public defender. He's 60, he's Medicare age. He said within a year or two, it wouldn't be a shocker to be winding down, or, you know, that's an alarming thing, because we don't get a lot of attorneys coming back. We don't have a lot of things to draw in law firms. And if you look at the composite in the courtroom, has gone from this many lawyers to this many lawyers to this many lawyers. There aren't a lot that are going to want to do criminal work on a part-time basis to replace that. So, and that's every small county. So again, it's not unique to us. It's every small county can't get professionals, whether it's, you know, lawyer, doctor, or need chief. You just can't get a lot to come back to small rural communities unless they have family connections they want to come back. But anyway, the worry I have, if it can even happen, even if you're investigating it, is that if it's not done with the one or the other done, maybe the public defender one is a bigger issue to be talked about. Judges, obviously, I have no power in that decision. It's a judge's decision. Sure. My thing is, if we get it, if the decision is to help the system, a full-time assistant state's attorney is of value to the county as well as the criminal justice system, that it be done with the idea of working to slowly make it a full-time beyond whatever a grant would do. Because otherwise, I just don't think I could offer it to somebody without there being some guarantee if they're already here, if they have a family, kids, house, that kind of thing. So.
I've got one question. I know in your budget there's $45,000 for assistant state's attorney, but then public defender, it says public defender deputies in that classification, it's $146,000.
That's what we pay the public defender for total. It has to be, but we hire a couple of extra.
I know when there's conflicts, you have other people.
So the public defender makes a lot less than that. That's money that's going to the private attorneys that have to be brought in. We also have a backup public defender from Effingham
Right,
that
okay.
handles the conflict cases.
So that's the total cost, but I wonder,
What is the public defender has to make a certain percentage?
If he's full-time public defender, he has to make 90% of what the state's attorney makes.
And that
And
would
you're
be,
reimbursed by the state,
right.
like you are with my salary. My salary was frozen in 1988, so I think the county pays 15 or 16,000, and any increase since 1988 is reimbursed by the state.
so actually by going to a full-time public defender, it could save us money because we get reimbursed?
Well, that's why I said I had a question, because I've got, to do what maybe what you're talking about doing would cost us, if we did both of them, would probably cost us 140 grand. But that's also, we'd have to, the public defender would have to have somebody, wouldn't they have to have a secretary and a place to do it?
And that's the other part of this, and this also with the eye towards, again, if we're building a new jail, if we're rehabbing courthouse, stream of government, making it more efficient, the public defender is really no place. He shares an office with cabinets and something that used to be maybe the jury room for that small courtroom.
Right.
He has no office that he sits down and meets with people, or they come and have appointments on off hours or what have you. So, and there's some, again, this is my opinion and observation. Certainly the judges have their own more significant opinions and observations, as well as the public defender himself. I just know, again, being on the other side, kind of watching, how do you get the paper? He's using his office down in Clark County, calls, paperwork, phone messages, emails, pleadings. He's got to have somebody to give him some help. I mean, he has a private attorney's office down there. I think he has some money in his budget now for overhead, copies and stamps and whatnot.
That's like 6 or 7 grand in there.
But
in the summer.
Office supplies, 11,000.
Yeah, we get half that back from the other county.
Clark County.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, public defender right now is split with Clark County, and then my assistant is split with Clark County. I don't know whose books it shows up on and what.
Ours.
So this 146,000 includes both counties, and they reimburse us
Right. And
their
that's what-
share of this 146,000.
Right. They Clark County reimburses about 72,000,
Yeah. Okay.
and then the state sends us 66,000, and then we pay them half.
Right, I got it.
Any other questions, again, either about the function of the office or any complaints? I mean, if there are issues on bond and why people aren't, everybody isn't in jail or prison, and why isn't every case filed, so you understand the level of cases that flow through. I thought I'd give you that background, so not that you can defend it, just so you can understand it, so when people come and talk to you about it, you might have something to say, or...
Well, once he told me all that, I knew you guys had to hear it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I understood a lot of it anyway.
Well,
but
not all of us.
not
did.
everybody does.
Yeah.
This is helpful. I've learned a few things.
I mean, the plea bargain process, which people think is an evil word, no place anywhere, I'm talking urban, money,
Right.
no money, you can't function.
Yeah.
Because law enforcement, obviously the pressure they receive, everybody wants to be arrested, every victim wants everybody arrested, but sometimes you just can't prove the case. You might understand it in your gut, people think they know, they just think he's a bad guy otherwise, so he probably did this. You can't reason with people and explain how the system works, and that the system it's set up to protect the defendant from the state, to me. So everything bends towards the defendant. That's our way. That's the Bill of Rights. So it's constitutional protection. I don't complain about that. There's nothing wrong with that. But you have to understand the rules if you're going to go play the game, and you can't just say, "Well, I don't like the rules. Or I think they ought to be." There shouldn't be a three-point line in the basketball court. It wasn't when I played. Well, there is now. So now you have to change your offense, change your defense, and you have to deal with it. So the rules have changed for criminal law, and it's going to, I think, continue with this criminal justice reform momentum. Is some of it good? Yes. Some of it is not taking into account smaller rural communities. Because
But by having a full-time public defender, you know, and another, you know, full-time assistant is just gonna, might speed things up, but it's not gonna, I think, some people think, well, we need to lock them up. It's not gonna lock up more people, probably, is it?
well, I can't say that the cases. Not every case leads to being locked up, but any case that gets resolved, there's a potential for, you know,
Right.
for felonies, and not your first, unless it's a physical harm or
Right.
touching case. I mean, there's again, things the judges have to consider before they can sentence someone to DOC. I take in those same considerations as well as local considerations, but the more case, for example, I can't I went to the judge, said, can we have trials the week before? Second Tuesday and the third Tuesday. Now more defendants get to that 11th hour decision making. Well, it can't involve the public defender because he's down in Clark County and that's their trial week. My assistant's down there. So we're thinking about, can I do that with just private attorneys on the second Tuesday, and try and move some of their cases. So, you know, we're exploring ways, but again, we're just limited with who's involved in what courtroom. There's only one trial courtroom, the upstairs courtroom. How to get more cases through that system fairly. And we can't control what other attorneys do and their clients do, and we can't blame. I understand what they go through when they're evaluating. How do I stay out with no penalty? Keep my head down, delay. You know, it's not, the delay isn't all on the government side of things. The defendant, we don't get speedy trial demands from the defendants.
Right.
They aren't saying, I want my trial and get there as quick as I can. They generally like to wait and see if our witnesses drop or evidence gets lost or tampered or whatever. They're, you know, it's the concept of justice as a speedy resolution. But in reality, you know, there are very few people that want to be held accountable and face their punishment and get over with.
I know we've heard complaints from the sheriff's department, you know, they've got people in there that's been there for over a year. And cases aren't, you know, they've got like 20 cases.
Well, I think
and why it takes so long. I mean, a year, that's kind of ridiculous, but
well,
there's reasons, I'm sure.
Yeah, not only is it not ridiculous, because of what I just told you, the idea of anybody being in our jail for more than a year is because they've been sentenced there to serve time, they've been arrested multiple times, or DOC's not taking them, or Health and Human Services not taking them. I can't keep anybody for more than 120 days for speedy trial purposes. Once you're arrested, you have 120 days to either post bond or be released. So who you're listening to at the jail, they don't understand the system, and I correct them week after week after week.
I'm talking, you want to know a specific person?
Not
defendant?
Yeah.
Robinson.
Yes. He has been declared unfit on a number of occasions.
Right.
He's been tried and sent to prison earlier. Those cases were appealed. He now is waiting on his newest attorney, I should say, which is out of town north of us, that sues us for civil rights violations, who only took his case because of civil rights violations. He's been arrested for burglarizing the old high school that was being rehabbed twice. He's been arrested for drug possession. He's been arrested for headbutting the corrections officer. Whether he's damaged anything, yes, he's got multiple felonies. So the idea that he is in custody is his choice. Because again, we're going to come back to the rules. The state cannot keep a defendant in custody for more than 120 days because of speedy trial problems. So if he's there, he needs to talk to his attorney. Because they have decided for some reason it's better for them. Like he doesn't get arrested again. We can't just put somebody in a cell and forget about them. They come to court every month, every 2 months. there's a speedy trial demand. I'd have to let them out.
So because they're not asking for that, that's why it just goes on.
They've
and on.
decided it's better to serve time locally than serve time in DOC.
And they just keep prolonging things.
Well, she's an elderly attorney who had COVID concerns and didn't come to court for 3 or 4 months. I mean, anything recent, let's not forget we had no jail.
Right.
Let's use Mr. Robinson as another example. He was arrested on a case where we had no jail, so then he was down in Crawford County because they needed a rubber room.
Right.
And then he was released to go to mental health care that he just walked out of. Oh, escape charge, new felony. So again, he's got multiple felonies. I can think of, if they're going to mention somebody else, I can think of 3 individuals who have 10 felonies. But they're small enough where we can't hold them. They have to get, again, there is no bond for property or drug crimes. So they're getting out. And then they stay out as long as their addiction, they gotta have it, they go steal something to pay the addiction, or burglarize someplace, and they're arrested again. That individual just is in DOC now. But now we have 10 other cases we have to get to. And it's kind of like, well, what's more important? He's already in DOC, do we get somebody currently, or do we start bring him back and try and get his other cases resolved? We have 3 of those individuals that have, I'm thinking at least 10 felonies? Or 10 pending cases, some might be driving felonies.
Well, you just talked about drug addiction and mental things, and that's something we talked about with this jail thing that maybe needs to address, bigger picture.
Yeah, if when it comes to, if I understand timing of whether we'll have partners on September 1st or whatever, whether HRC is in or out or at what level, because they're probably, and again, I have no numbers to back this up because I don't have the time to do it, but just observationally, half our caseload will be the result of mental health issues and or drug issues. Maybe they're related. I don't know enough about drugs and mental health, how they interact.
Do you see, based on what you're observing, do you feel that we need to have more, be able to offer more services for those problems here in Edgar County?
Absolutely. I mean, there's no, we would much rather, everybody can have an opinion on whether or not drug use is a medical issue or a legal issue, or is it a combination of both. I'm in the combination of both, leaning towards if you don't try and again, you can't force people to do it.
Exactly.
Whether you send everybody to drug prison, and then for every time you go to a month, you go to treatment, you get a month off your sentence so you can work your way out of it like that, or not at all. You can't do that. But that's the only incentive based, because you're not removing people from their community, whatever that is, other drug users, dysfunction, chaos. It's very difficult to treat addiction, I would guess, if you're always in that circle of friends and acquaintances and connections that led you to the addiction to begin with.
I just think that's a big thing that we need with this jail thing, to get this addressed.
That's why we needed to think about this and that.
There's no doubt they're finger and glove.
Yeah.
Mental health, drug addiction, and crime.
Right. Yeah. And we met with HRC here a month or so ago, and he said that's the biggest issues here that he sees, that in this community that needs to be addressed.
Undoubtedly.
Yeah. So I think we need to. I'm anxious to get this report from this jail thing. I thought we were supposed to get it today, or the summary of this jail study.
You mean the interviews?
That and the survey that they did.
Right.
She said that we were going to have it by this.
Well, that's what when we get to it, I was going to ask you about. Okay.
All right. But just see what the public's perception of it. I mean, I've talked to, the people that are involved in it, and obviously I know what the problem is, and they do too. But that needs to be addressed.
No. Would it be helpful, do we need to go into closed session right now, or for anything to consider?
No, I think most of the information that we have out there depends on what you think the next, I don't know how likely, unlikely, or how far along the process of investigating it is. I would come back for that if
That's
the
fine.
board decides we at least have to explore it further. I'd come back and we go and talk about personnel hiring issues, but
That's what I was asking.
the most important thing I thought is if we're going to consider anything, even issue, to say no or yes, is to say, well, what is the real need for it, and try and provide those that oversight as to how the situation works. And then if you want more information, or there's another meeting and it gets the next step, I'll easily come back and answer questions. Okay, anybody doesn't have any questions?
You've given us a lot to absorb.
Yeah, but that's why we're, we're gonna build this new jail sometime, we think. There's a lot, we don't wanna stop short, there's a lot of, we've already discussed a lot of these things, they've been mentioned. And hopefully we're getting to the point where we're gonna put some validity to what we're talking about. This is all important.
All right, thanks for your time, guys, appreciate it.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Sorry, you guys, you're waiting or something?
Let's see, agenda items, let's see, highway we went through, ambulance service, I think everybody understands the liquor license he answered. We don't have a, he is trying to match up our ordinance with what has been requested. And if it can be done, then that's up to us.
You're talking about Grandview?
Grandview and 2 Portico girls. Right, there's both of them. And if they can't be issued licenses under current ordinance, what it takes to get it in shape that we can. Okay? Is there a question about that? Okay, solicit.
It's gonna be tabled, basically.
It's on the table.
Okay.
All right?
It says,
Unless you guys wanna move it off the table, I mean, or just say no to them.
So we don't have an answer yet?
No, we do not have an answer from the attorney.
We'll just table it,
okay.
He's
I'll
trying.
talk to some people and when it comes to time, I'll mention what they say, so.
That's fine. Solicit bids for audit. Solicit bids for group health insurance. I talked to Andy even though he's out of town. If we need to, that way we have approval, because quite frankly, if you think about it, if we don't do it now, we won't get any bids in time to do it, and it's gonna be rough right now. I did talk to Kirk Good, and we should have some figures shortly. But he'll get a hold of Andy on that. Resolution to transfer 72 grand. That goes to the bond fund that we pay the bonds on for the tower. That's 2 years, 36,000 twice that we said we'd put in the budget. The next 3 items we usually do in the fall, just before we close out the fiscal year. We thought we'd do them now since there's adequate funds. I talked to Dan, and then I talked to Andrea. That leaves plenty of money in the funds that she needs. Appoint Randall Smith, and then of course reports. So is there anything that trips your trigger on any of these things? Obviously Andy will be here at the meeting. Are there any other comments that we need to, because we're coming up on 11? I don't want to say we shouldn't talk about something if you guys want to.
Just, you don't know where the reports from Coles County?
Okay, that's what I'm gonna, okay. They're available, you just tell him you want them, and he will send them. It's over 100 pages. But if you want them hard copy, we'll get them. If you want them electronically, we'll get them. But Aaron can.
They are available.
They are available.
How many pages?
Over 100.
I'll blow up my computer.
Well, probably not.
So that's the,
Let me double check just 1 second.
is that the results of the survey plus all the statements?
100 pages. One page more than I'll read. Radiation appointment coming up.
Hope this jail thing, when we get to it, is gonna encompass a lot of things. I don't want to stop short and say, well, maybe we should. Well, I guess that's what we're in now, is
Right.
Now, find the space too. so-
Been coming up with the money to pay for it. Oh,
Yeah,
Yep.
that's gonna be
well, find the place too. I mean,
a potential issue.
look fit.
Well, it's a work in progress, that's all I can say.
I probably won't be here when this happens.
If you don't change your attitude, you're not gonna be.
I'll be pushing up the daisies.
Don't say that.
Well,
I will say one thing, what you just said though, be sure to put plenty of rubber rims in that thing.
yeah.
The one we did in Greene County, they got 6 rubber rims.
Oh, do they? Jesus.
And matter
We're
of fact,
talking about probably one.
oh, they did 6 of them, I'm just,
I
for the
think
mental health.
They mentioned 2 or 3 for us preliminary.
Well, the hospital is putting, the second story in the hospital is supposed to be for mental health. I don't know if we're gonna put rubber rooms up there or not, but do you know that?
I don't
That
know.
whole big building, whole floor, second floor is gonna be mental health.
I didn't know that.
That's what Ollie said, yeah.
One thing in a jail, and you know, we're not that old. I mean, to you, since 10 years that I've been working here, they house a lot of women. They used to not throw women in jail.
Mm-hmm.
But now, women are up 25%,
Right.
but the mental health, it's up probably 30,
Oh, yeah.
35%.
Exactly.
I got one woman they can have.
Okay,
Oh, yeah.
interviews and draft. It's draft form, it's not public form. So it's not available to the public yet, according to Coles County. But it is available to each of us on the board to review. And all I have to do is go in there and tell Aaron what form he wanted in, and he will get them to you, okay?
When are they gonna have it for the public?
1 year,
Like 1 year from now?
when they make their final report.
Jeez.
That's according to the grant.
Would it be hard an architect before then?
Oh, yeah, this, I think you're getting what it is confused with what, it's part of the
Okay, yeah,
process,
okay.
okay?
Okay.
Okay, all right.
All right? Anything else to come before the meeting this morning?
Question.
Yes, ma'am, I'm sorry, I forgot about you.
That's okay. I was unusually quiet today. What's the Northport Conservancy District?
It is it's an agency that includes part of the, part of the Wabash system. And we appoint one of the board members on there every so often.
Okay, so who's Randall Smith?
Oh, I don't, do you know, Woggy?
I don't know.
They recommend who it is, and that's what we do.
All right, well, lucky Randall Smith then.
I'm sorry,
Most
we
of
can
it's in
find
Clark
out
County.
before then. I mean, we're not gonna,
Most of
It
it's
is
in Clark County. Yeah, most
It's-
of it is.
it's,
Most of that district is in Clark County.
did you hear that?
No, what?
Most of that district is in Clark County.
Okay, so he may be a Clark County person.
I'm
and
sure he is.
representing both of
Yeah,
us.
yeah.
Okay, all right,
And it's a
Okay.
reappointment, so
And it's a
obviously they're pleased with him.
reappointment too, so.
okay. And did I hear anything on number 10, the liquor license for Cash Hammond?
There's not gonna be any action because the state's attorney has not finished doing what he needs to do.
Okay, I wasn't sure when I was hearing that if that was only issue number 11 or if it was also number 10.
Both.
Okay, all right, that's it for me.
Okay, thanks for hanging in there.
Yeah.
You want, do we have a motion to adjourn? Phil moves, Dan seconds. All those in favor of adjourning the meeting signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Okay, thank you.